This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
You know what? Before we start today, if I could, because I'm a longtime listener of the Big O Show, I think on like 50 different South Florida radio stations. But I have to say this, listening to your previous segment about the Dolphins, the one thing, and again, I read everything. I read Joe Shad, I read Omar Kelly, I read David Furones, I've read Adam Beasley, I read the Herald's new writer, I read everyone. When you look at the Dolphins schedule, and you have two left against the Jets and one left against the Giants and one left against the Texans and one left against the Falcons and New England, which will be in the crapper the last game of the season. Look, I know everyone is looking at the schedule as the Dolphins as their easy team. Oh, you can't fail with this schedule. This schedule gets so soft. I mean, look at it. Two Jets, a Giants, a Falcons, a Texans, a Patriots. You're right back in it if you almost play by the line, because you know what? The wise guys in Vegas are going to have the Dolphins favored in several, if not all of those games. They know the Dolphins are better than the record, and they know those other teams stink. So when you look at it, I mean, just the 3 games against the New York teams and what they're going through. If you think it's bad for Coach Flo here, you go be Joe Judge up there. Or you see what's going through with the Jets, what they're going through with a rookie quarterback, which we never went through. The Dolphins never went through anything as bad with Tua as what the Jets are dealing with, which you often do with a neophyte quarterback. Oh, I'm telling you, when you look at that schedule, anyone who writes off the Jets, and again, rather the Dolphins, and again, I love my fellow South Florida writers and brethren, is a fool, because that schedule has many gifts built into it.
I'm with you. That's why it just, thank you, Ira, for bringing common sense like you usually do to the conversation. But it's just, I just find it like disturbing that they have had a really nice run the first 2 years in rebuilding, and there's this entire world of panic after 1 month, and it's only 4 games. And the dude's track record is he fixes it every time. He figures it out. And that's what he's done the first 2 years. So can we at least can we give the man an opportunity to try to figure it out is all I'm asking.
And you look at the 4 games, the Bills are great. The Bills just don't beat you. They shut you out and they take your wives and children. You look at the Raiders. I think Gruden finally has it right there. Yes, New England maybe was closer than should have been. Sure, you have that letdown against Colts, but there's plenty else going in play. Everyone's going to have bad losses. Every team in this league. The Bills will have a bad loss along the way. So I just, I know you kid with me when I come on here twice a week with the Acura Pembroke Pines Heat Report, and also with Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint on Wednesdays about the Heat and the Panthers have to save South Florida. But our market's way of giving up on our teams early, I find so disappointing. Look, give up on the Marlins in August and July. Okay, I can deal with that. And you know what's going to happen also with the Panthers. They are notorious for their poor starts. They just are. I wish they weren't, but they are.
Oh, except last year.
I'm saying, and that was the salvation.
Right.
But people, give it time. They have an 82-game season. The Heat have an 82-game season. You know what? The Heat might lose opening night to the Milwaukee Bucks. Then they might go on the road and lose to the Indiana Pacers in a typical NBA road loss. The sky is not falling. We have so many skies falling. You know when the sky is falling? When you see what the University of Miami did, when you see they couldn't be competitive, when you see Appalachian State, I mean, just the fate stepping in there and helping the Canes, when it's consistent like that, there's one thing. There are more good things about the Dolphins, far more than there are about the Canes. You could actually do like Omar Kelly does and Joe Shad does and the other writers do, and list 5 good things out of every Dolphins game this year. You can. There are that. You start with Xavier Howard to go down the line there. So there's something to build on. I think that's the difference. It'll be the same thing with the Heat. There will be moments where you go, oh, it's not working with Jimmy and Kyle. Oh, they don't have enough depth. Everyone, I don't know. I honestly think you need to get some sort of Prozac sponsor on your show so we can all calm down a little, or just feed them the Ambien, one of the two.
Yeah. Or add a CBD company here to mellow us out a little bit there, because definitely needed. All right. So, by the way, what's the cockamamie schedule tonight? Why a 10 o'clock start in Houston?
ESPN is doing a doubleheader, so they wanted They wanted to feature this late. I mean, there's so many weird reasons. Also, Jeff Van Gundy lives in Houston. It's easy to get an analyst to the game. You know what? They're fulfilling obligation. It's just like when you buy your season tickets and they try to throw in the preseason. You're like, really? I mean, oh, look at next Friday. They're playing the Boston Celtics at 6:30 p.m. on Friday at FTX Arena, which I've heard there's traffic in Miami on Fridays, and they want people there early. Why? Because ESPN has a 9 p.m. college football game that day. It's all about the TVs. It's never about the fans. It's never about the viewers. I'm going to go talk to Eric Spoelstra about an hour or so and shoot around. He'll tell us maybe who's playing or who's not. You know what? You would have to be the most diehard of diehard Heat fans to stay up for a 10 p.m. exhibition start. And a matter of fact, I think everyone who does, if you DM the Big O, he will send you $1.
No. Why you do that to me? But I will be up. My crazy ass will be up. I will be definitely watching it. Ira, just out of curiosity, since FTX is their sponsor, have any of the players decided to get paid in crypto? Do you know?
Right now, you know,
they allow you in the NBA to do that. Also,
the Heat are dancing. The Heat are dancing around. The Heat are dancing around that right now. When we're asking them, are you taking for payments? Or are you taking it as concessions? You know what? This even for the hip, cool league is still old school when it comes to the owners and the owners' finances. Just like in the old school NFL, you're seeing it. You have people like Mark Cuban who are accepting all crypto as payments. You know, he's moved there. Obviously, not some of the newer sort of tokens that show up and then go away rather quickly.
But he understands crypto.
Yes,
he understands smart contracts and blockchains.
And you know what?
He has real knowledge of it, actually.
And if not Mickey Arison, I would assume at some point Nick Arison, sort of. I think you'll see the whole next wave of owners and GMs sort of move to that because you know what? $1 is $1, whether it's minted or whether it's minted. You know, either way, you're still going to wind up with the same money as long as you have that flexibility that you can always convert it to cash, you know, into U.S. cash. Course, I think that's the whole thing. I don't think the players, union wants to get involved in currency. Matter of fact, Big O, even when you play for the Canadian teams, you're paid in U.S. currency because they don't want to get involved in exchange rates. Look, you know the volatility now.
I know the NFL does it. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, but the volatility in the crypto market, you know, what one Bitcoin is worth today, which is still plenty, versus what it will be a month, a week, a year from now. It's sort of that volatility. I think they want to keep everything in the same, especially Big O in a salary cap league, where if you have fluctuations on one end, whether it's revenue or the payout, it sort of makes everything complex. Look, it's all heading that way. This league has been very forward-thinking, socially, economically, the way the games are. So, yeah, I think it would just be a matter of time.
I saw in your Ask Ira that they were asking, about whether Caleb Martin up against Akpala. And I'm almost like, wow, is that even a question? Is that even a debate now? Because I almost feel like Akpala is yesterday's news.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's the case. You tell me, you're closer to the situation. But I almost, just from the other night, watching Caleb Martin come off the bench when Jimmy didn't play and play well. And hell, after I had you on the next day, you even think Caleb Martin will have some kind of an impact throughout the year. So that conversation, has Akpala become the forgotten man?
Well, it's interesting because since I spoke to you about KZ the first time, there were a couple of trades here in the NBA where teams offloaded salary and each time had to throw in a future second-round pick. We saw that with the Nets, with Sekou Doumbouya. They got rid of his contract to the Rockets, threw in a second-round pick. We saw it with the Pacers, who wanted more room under the tax. They traded Edmund Sumner, who's out for the season, and a second-round pick to the Nets, which happens to be the Heat's 2025 second-round pick. So, here's sort of the irony. The Heat spent 3 second-round picks in order to draft KZ Akpala in the 2019 NBA second round. They were caught by his play out of Stanford. They thought it was something special. That's a lot. That's not the typical move the Heat makes in the second round. They usually wait till the second round's over. They get their Duncan Robinson. They get their Gabe Vincent. They get their Max Strus. They're patient on that. So they made that deal. So now if you want to get rid of KZ Akpala's salary to add another player under the luxury tax, apparently, based on the moves by the Rockets and by the Nets, you have to throw in another second rounder. Oh, that would be 4 second rounders to get the guy and to get rid of the guy. So I think you just have to cut bait and play it out. Here's the difference. If Victor Oladipo was healthy, you wouldn't need that additional wing as much at the start of the season. He wouldn't be a contributor. So you know what? Whoever my 12th or 13th man, I could deal with it. But because Victor Oladipo is out, not traveling on this trip now here to San Antonio and then here in Houston tonight, it's different. That could be a rotation player. Caleb Martin is so much more ready. Caleb Martin is so much more mature. Caleb Martin is so much more of a, I mean, I've spoken to both, I don't mean to demean Casey, a man. You just feel it when you talk to him. He gets it. He knows it. He's been in some very good college programs. He played out in Nevada under Eric Musselman with his brother Cody, and they had a very successful season there. I like him a lot. He deserves to play ahead of him. The Heat have a Casey Okpala conundrum. But you know what, Owen? You have seen this in your coverage with the Dolphins. You can misdraft, but at a certain point, you have to say, we made a mistake and we move on. How many times in recent years, Dolphins, second, third, and fourth round picks, you realize, hey, or I guess in case of, was it Jordan, the number 3 pick or whatever, you just realize, hey, this guy can't play. I think the Heat are in a tough spot. They really want to justify the expenditure of picks because remember, those picks are going out in 22, 25, and 26. So every time you and I watch an NBA draft, why aren't the Heat drafting in the second round? Oh, Pallet, that's 22. 25. Why are, KZ, 20s, you know. So I think if they really want to try to justify it, he's going to have a really good preseason, perhaps even starting tonight here in Houston.
All right. Last couple of years, obviously people look at us and, oh, you guys are just homers and this and that. And it was great to see that the NBA coaches backed us up because one of the things I've said for a long time, it's Pops, it's Spo, and Rick Carlisle. Those are my top 3, and that's my list. If I had to make the 3 best coaches in the NBA, those are my 3 guys. And I have, and you got to give Pops his props. But I thought it was really cool that NBA coaches voted Spo the best coach in the NBA. And I think it's because of his forward thinking and all the success that he's had also throughout it. But I thought it was really cool. He downplayed it as much as possible when you guys asked him, typical of Spo, as always. But it was nice to see that the NBA coaches are backing us homers that I've said, you know, that I've talked about how great Spo has been.
Yeah, he's widely respected. And it wasn't just the general manager's poll. It's been coaches and others talking about him. I'd probably throw 2 others into your group there, and Quinn Snyder and the Jazz. Small market coaching is hard, and he's had success there. And I think Steve Kerr, because that's sort of the Phil Jackson thing. You can say it's easier to coach great players, but it's not. Because ask David Blatt and ask the coaches at the Cavaliers who had LeBron James. So I still think it's not as easy as people think. Oh, one thing I think is really interesting.
Wait, hold on. Let me interrupt you there just 1 second. My problem with Steve Kerr is I haven't seen him have success with less. And that's where Spo kicks his ass. You know, when I see Spo go 31-10 with a bunch of journeymen, you know, that's just ass-kicking coaching right there. You know, that kind of stuff.
Well, it was also 11-30 to start that season, so it goes it goes both ways. And you know what?
You still went 500 with that team. It's impressive.
To a degree, the difference is Steve Kerr never had a coach bad, and then all of a sudden he had to. Eric Spoelstra inherited the 2008 Miami Heat. I mean, he had Michael Beasley at the start. He had a team coming up, so he's learned how to do both. What I really find interesting is this. In recent years, and I think this bothered some coaches, everyone was piling on the Brad Stevens train. He's the greatest thing since sliced bread. He's a genius. He's everyone. Right. And now if you read the stories out of Boston, with Ime Udoka, their new coach, they're talking about we have a better system. We're feeling better about ourselves. There's better leadership. So I think a lot of times the hot name is not the name that endures. And give Spo credit. He stepped in 2008. He had a great team with Bosh and Wade and LeBron, but still got 2 titles thanks to Ray Allen's 3. He's kept them consistently competitive, and that means something. We would take that from the Dolphins.
By the way, the shoes he had to fill.
Yes.
Let's not forget that Steve Kerr wasn't filling anybody's shoes at Golden State.
No, you never want to follow the man. I mean, Don Nelson learned that in New York. Don't be the man who follows the man. Be the man who follows the man who follows the man. Be the next guy in there. No, I mean, people talk about what Eric Spoelstra does. I know Heat fans sometimes think he overcoaches, he overanalyzes, he overthinks. But you know what? He's constantly willing to adjust and sort of put his stamp on his teams. You know what? Oh, we cover him for 82 games, as we will this year on the Acura Pembroke Pines report, covering the Miami Heat. And there will still be moments I think it's fair to criticize. I think out of 82 games, you can tell me, why did he do that in the fourth quarter? Why did he play that guy? That's all well and done, and that's all fair. But the end of the year of the body work, I don't think anyone sits there and go, man, if the Heat had a different coach, they'd be that much better. I'd like to find that person.
The way Spo was talking about Lowry, obviously he loves what he saw from Lowry and the mentality, the way he's always thinking ahead. He was talking about how he hated facing Lowry because his mind is always thinking of, how to attack you and those kind of things. There's obviously a comfort zone and a confidence with him. Tonight against Houston, can you see a Lowry taking a rest and him trying to experiment? All right, if I don't have Lowry throughout the season, how am I going to run this offense and who else? Or do you expect Lowry to play a lot again tonight?
It's interesting because Gabe Vincent showed up in the injury report. So I think they might want to give him another day and make tomorrow in San Antonio the Gabe Vincent game. Oh, I would like to try or believe that I'll be able to follow the Heat rotation to connect the dots in the preseason. Not sure much more is as meaningless as the Heat and the NBA preseason. So even the other day, Gabe Vincent played as the backup point guard, got his assists, looked okay. I still think Eric Spoelstra is going to look at every and any possibility, and it very well could be when Kyle Lowry goes to the bench, Jimmy Butler takes over the playmaking. Maybe he staggers. In other words, Lowry comes out 4 minutes in, then Jimmy comes, then Jimmy goes out and Kyle comes back 8 minutes into the first quarter, and they do it that way. They want to make it work with Gabe Vincent, but here's the thing, and I talk to you about this every week and twice a week in our Acura Pembroke Pines report here. If you're going with the starting lineup of Adebayo and Tucker and Robinson and Butler and Lowry, and if we're assuming, based on contracts and experience and things like that, your three prime reserves are going to wind up being Tyler Hero, Dwayne Dedmon, and Markieff Morris, where does Gabe Vincent fit in there? Is he ahead of Max Strus? Is he part of the rotation? We're not even talking about Victor Oladipo. What I want to see, I don't care if it's with Lowry, if it's without him, if they stagger the rotations. You and I are going to be talking after these two games. Next week we talk. There'll be another game against Charlotte. It'll come down to this. Do you feel comfortable with Gabe Vincent as your full-time backup point guard? That'll be determined not by the rotations, but by his play. Is he consistent enough that you could say, you know what, Ira? Give me 18 minutes a game of that guy. That'll work, because there is no one else. You tell me, with Victor Oladipo out, who is the third-string point guard? You're sure as heck not going to play Marcus Garrett, who's a defensive-only player. It would be like if they would have had to go with Briante Weber as a backup point guard. So they're sort of locked in there. And again, it comes down to, as you always do, bring things full cycle. Or if you didn't have KZ Okpala, you could bring in a veteran point guard. You could bring in Jeff Teague, who is still out there. Because I got a feeling, if you were to ask me, Ira, do you feel more comfortable with Jeff Teague or Gabe Vincent as your backup backup point guard, I guess quarterback on the floor, I would go with Jeff Teague. So the whole roster has to come together, but Gabe Vincent is certainly someone, Big O, you should keep your eye on.
All right, a two-part question that maybe some people might overlook a little bit. How important is it for the Strus to be loose? Because it's great to have Duncan doing his thing, but you lost you lost Nunn, and he adds threes, and I know it's inconsistent threes,
right?
But you also lost a Dragon, so you've lost a couple of guys that really helped you out in that 3-point area a couple of years ago. Jay Crowder helped you out in that area. So how important is it for Strus to be loose, to be consistent, to be the guy that when Duncan's not on the floor, they have that guy to stretch? And we've watched him develop the last couple of years here, but it looks like his role will be elevated if he's able to meet the demands that they need. But how dependent is it? And if he fails, what kind of a burden does that put on the bench?
Yeah, they need another three-point shooter off the bench. When you look at the reserves right now, Markieff Morris has been very up and down over his
Yeah,
career. He's one of the three I mentioned. I don't think I ever want to count on Tyler Hero as a three-point shooter because I don't want to lock him in a box of having him stand in a corner. He's too versatile as a three-level scorer to do that. I don't count him. And God bless Dwayne Dedman, who had 1 year of shooting threes, but he ain't going in there to be a three-point shooter. So I totally agree, Big O. I think Max Strus right now is a rotation player. Again, we keep coming back to this until Victor Oladipo comes back because then you're adding different offense in there. I think Max Strus is very important to this team. I don't watch him offensively. You can watch him shoot his threes. I know we can do that. I'm going to be concentrating on Max Strus and see if he's a plus player when you factor in his defense. Because I've seen, you know this, you've gone back too many Jason Caponos over the years. A guy who can hit a three, but I go back to the old, I know this might be too old school, the old Bugs Bunny cartoons, when there's sort of, you see someone as a piece of meat. You know, when Elmer Fudd is hunting you and he sees the big steak. When Jason Capono was on the floor, the four other players on offense will go to the other side and they basically say, sick him to whoever Jason Capono was guarding. And no matter what Jason did on offense, they would get more back on defense. I don't think Max Strus is in that class, but you know what? We almost have to sit here weekly, and you'll tell me Ira Max Strus hit threes, and I'll say to you, but what do you think about his defense? If he can defend, that is game-changing. Duncan Robinson came into the NBA as an awful defender. Right now, he's a passable defender. He's getting better in the team concepts. That's all I need to see from Max Strus. Then I would have 1 in Duncan Robinson and 1A in Max Strus.
Now, and just to play off of that, even with Depot coming back, which we all hope he does, and if he's healthy at the back end of the season, it's still important to have Strus on the floor because Depot's ability to attack the rim and facilitate,
right,
to have that flexibility of him either attacking you or throwing it back to Strus out in the perimeter is a really nice 1-2 combination to attack people with. So
and
when you do get Depot back, if you've got Duncan and Strus on the court at the same time, man, that really opens it up for their offense.
Yeah, and Victor Oladipo's not a great three-point shooter either. So you know what? The first preseason game, everyone was hitting threes. The Heat are very good at home at shooting threes. You've seen that over the years. You can't have a season where you win the games, you make a lot of threes, you get killed in the games, and you don't make a lot of threes. There has to be a consistency in your threes. There has to be a floor spacing threat. Again, Jimmy Butler didn't play in the first preseason game. He's a bad three-point shooter. That hurts the spacing. You could have a non-spacer. Tyler Hero is more of a spacer, even at this point of his career, than Jimmy Butler is. So do you get too bogged down all of a sudden when you have Bam and Jimmy on the floor and not enough three-point shooting if Duncan's not available? Yes. So I agree. Yes. And you know what? It's like the cycle show today. So we go back again to KZ Okpala. Maybe he hits the threes. If he doesn't, you could get rid of him or move him to open the tax space and bring in a Wesley Matthews. So again, everyone is talking about the Heat rosters being set under the tax. I can keep giving you one more player, and at each turn, we know they can't because of the luxury tax. Now, there's two factors there. There's the Udonis Haslem thing I will not go into. It is the Heat. They are set in stone. Udonis will be here as long as he wants, so, I don't even debate that with you anymore. There's no reason to. There's no changing that. So it comes down to the KZ Okpala roster spot and how they handle that. So we wait and we see. But I'll tell you, I can give you so many names where I would feel more comfortable, whether it was a Jeff Teague or a Wesley Matthews or a James Ennis, who's still out there also right now. There are names for the minimum, but the Heat's up against the tax, and so we wait.
All right, there you go. All right, the Young Rockets tonight against the Heat. Should be a lot of fun. So get the Cuban coffee ready so you can stay up tonight. Ira, as always, thank you for taking some time, my friend. We will catch up next week.
And if anyone wants to DM me on where I can get a cafecito at 10 p.m. here in Houston, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, Big O.
You got it. There you go. The great Ira Winderman. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat and catch him 3 times a week here, twice with the Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat Report, and once a week on Wednesdays with the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint show.
is the Big O Show.